Hello, St. Paul Church family and friends, and those of you that might listen by way of social media. I just want to encourage you for just about 2 minutes of your time about life interruptions. No matter who you are, you will experience some life interruptions. And what I've discovered about life interruptions is oftentimes life interruptions are God's entryway into our lives. It's God's entryway into our consciousness, our awareness, and what we do. And so right now, your life might be experiencing a interruption. And that interruption could be financial distress. That interruption could be the death of a loved one. That interruption could be family difficulties that you might be experiencing. And then for all of us, we are experiencing life interruptions by the way of COVID-19, where God is entering or desires to enter into our consciousness. It's in this chaos, it's in this confusion, often is God's entryway into one's consciousness, awareness, and into our lives. And so it is that when life is interrupted, you have to do something. And that is, the first thing you have to do is respond. And so we see Paul as Paul responds to life interruptions. Paul, then is Saul, as he's persecuting the church, has an encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus. And life is interrupted for him, and he has to make a decision on how he's going to respond. Saul then responds and decides that he's going to follow Christ and he's going to be an advocate for Christ. And so his life is interrupted, but his life is transformative. And so whenever it is life is interrupted, God then wants to transform us in those moments when our lives have been interrupted. And so how you respond, God wants to know now with where you are right now, what will be your response? And I'm hearing a lot about COVID-19. I'm hearing a lot about getting back to what's normal, getting back to a way of life that we once knew. But I don't think that's the response that God is looking for. God wants us to be transformed. He doesn't want us to go back to business as usual. He doesn't want us to go back to doing the same things that we were doing before this. He doesn't want us to go back to be that same community, that same church, that same individual. God is looking for this interruption to transform us. He doesn't want you to go back to that same life of paycheck to paycheck. Doesn't want you to go back to that same pain, that same disappointment. God says, I'm interrupting you now so that there can be transformation in your life. And so here's what I want to encourage you. While you're going through this life interruption, resist the temptation to go back. This should transform your thinking, transform your life, transform everything about you. Remember, he brings the children of Israel out of captivity, and when they're out, circumstances become difficult. And they want to go back to the familiar. They say, maybe we should have gone back. At least we had meat there. Here we are now, and we're on this manna. Resist the temptation that while you're experiencing life interruptions, to go back to the way that it was. God is bringing you something bigger. God is bringing you something better. Right where you are right now, your life is being interrupted. But God says, your latter shall be greater. Don't you dare go back to the same thing, to the same way. God wants to transform you. My brothers and my sister, my minute is up. Thank you for allowing me to encourage you during this life interruption that you might be experiencing. But God wants you to know you haven't seen your best days yet. God bless you until we meet again.